When we think of art, we often envision paintings, sculptures, or performances, expressions of human creativity that resonate with beauty and emotional power. While it's uncommon to associate the term art with a loudspeaker, when it comes to Bang & Olufsen's flagship loudspeaker, the BEOLAB 90, the word art feels perfectly fitting. The BEOLAB 90 transcends the typical expectations of audio equipment, captivating not just the ears, but the eyes as well, making it a bit of a masterpiece in the world of sound. Beneath the customizable aluminum, fabric, and wood exoskeleton rests 18 ScanSpeak drivers, 7 1-inch tweeters, 7 4.5-inch mid-range drivers, 3 10-inch woofers, and a single 13-inch front-firing woofer. There are 14 ICE power amplifiers, one for each of the mid-range drivers and tweeters, with 4 woofers each getting their own 1,000-watt Class D amplifiers, totaling 8,200 watts of power per loudspeaker. All of these combine for a reported frequency response of 12 Hz to 43 kHz at volumes up to 126 decibels. This means that the 90s can be compared to cost-no-object loudspeakers like Wilson Audio's WAMM Chronosonic at $900,000 or Sonus Faber's new Suprema at $750,000, both of which are going to require ancillary equipment such as amplifiers, preamps, source components, and cables before they'll ever play a note. But getting wrapped up in the specs of the BEOLAB 90 is, in a way, missing the point. One thing Bang & Olufsen does better than just about anyone is producing products that blend into your lifestyle rather than dictate it. And it all starts with the design. Yes, the 90 is an imposing loudspeaker, but give it an afternoon and watch it change from an immovable object to a sculptural expression. Its faceted fabric skin catches the light differently depending on the time of day, and as a result, it visually changes shape as the light and you begin to move around it. There's a sense of motion to it even when it's standing still. The 90s you see here represent the line's standard finish, wrapped in black fabric, accented by a natural aluminum frame with light oak wood trim. While I do find this look very timeless, your ability to play designer is virtually limitless. There are a total of 6 different fabrics and metals, along with 5 different wood combinations to choose from, making it very easy to incorporate these speakers into your home's decor. Or you could team up with your dealer to create a one-of-a-kind bespoke model that is truly your own. As we step into 2025, the 90s iconic speaker design has now reached a decade of existence, and while they don't utilize B&O's latest platform, Mozart, that doesn't mean they're left in the past. The BeoConnect Core, a compact device roughly the size of an Apple TV, acts as a bridge, allowing the 90s to tap into some of the latest features available through the B&O app. And with the Core, I've interacted with the 90s in a way similar to our A9, Balance, and the new BEOLAB 8s, including incorporating the 90s into our entire Bang & Olufsen whole home audio system. The Core also gives the 90s HDMI connectivity, which is clutch, as it is the only physical connection option that is missing from the 90s back panel. The 90 has 2 pairs of analog inputs, one balanced, yes, balanced, and the other unbalanced. You get optical and coaxial audio inputs that can accept high-res audio signals, as well as a USB and several of B&O's digital power link connections. There's a microphone input to tune the speakers to your room, and an Ethernet port for those of you who prefer a wired network connection. While we don't typically allow brands to personally install their systems for a review, we do make an exception when the delivery, installation, and setup are standard inclusions with your purchase. And we do this because we want our review experience to match as closely to the customer experience as possible. Watt Integration, an authorized B&O dealer that services much of the Southwest, I'm talking everywhere from Texas to Southern California. Now, they handled the installation for this review. The speakers arrived fully assembled and bolted inside 2 large wooden crates, weighing 300 pounds apiece. Maneuvering in the 90s is a job best left to professionals, and it took a team of 2 roughly 90 minutes to fully unbox and place the 90s in our living room before the actual setup process even began. Once the BEOLABs were connected to our home's network, the team began the calibration procedure. Now, this consisted of measuring the speaker's responses using test tones and a calibrated microphone. During this process, the 90s frequency response gets automatically adjusted to better suit the new environment. The process took about 15 minutes for the positions that I wanted to focus on, but had I wanted to correct the speaker's response for another, less typical seating position like, say, our kitchen, we could have measured their response from that part of our house and created a custom setting for the kitchen as well. Because the 90s drivers are arranged in a 360-degree pattern, the speaker can actually utilize whatever drivers are needed, even the ones on the side or the rear, to provide the most accurate stereo performance wherever, even when seated so far off axis, should your favorite chair not be in the center of your room. Being a huge Bang & Olufsen fan myself, I thought I had read everything there was to read about the 90s. It turns out that there is a pretty cool feature inside the app that not many know about, or at the very least, one no one really talks about. Once the auto room correction procedure was completed and saved for a few different seating positions, the install team showed me an option inside the app that I never knew existed. Inside the settings menu, there is a configure submenu, which lets experienced users make even finer adjustments to the 90s sound, which includes a multi-band parametric EQ. This meant I could use Room EQ Wizard to create a series of corrections, including the ability to have, say, less bass, more bass, enhanced dialogue, you get the idea. And this is a level of flexibility and customization that few products offer in the high-end audio space. I made more than 6 different custom profiles for the 90s during our evaluation, based on situations that just arose the longer I lived with the speakers, which made my overall experience even better and more versatile. And I gotta be honest, it would probably take me the better part of 6 months to fully explore and unpack every single way I could customize the 90s to my liking. As much as I would have loved more time with the iconic speaker, thankfully the 90s don't need a lot of tinkering. Out of the crate and after the initial factory calibration, which consisted of 3 different sets of measurements that spanned our 8-foot sofa, the 90s default response was impressive, regardless if I was in the narrow, wide, or omni sound setting. In its wide mode, from 200 Hz up to 20 kHz, the 90 ranks among the more linear or neutral speakers we've tested. The speaker naturally starts to roll off starting at around 5 kHz, but from about 200 Hz to 5 kHz, which is the bulk of the speaker's response, everything falls within 3 dB of the reference volume, which is impressive. There is a rise in bass between 100 and 200 Hz, similar to what you may see from speakers exhibiting a Harman-like curve, with the speaker's ultimate extension reaching 10 Hz in room at far above reference levels. The 90 hit 20 Hz in room at 17 decibels over reference with less than 1% distortion. Obviously, with this much headroom down low, there is a lot of flexibility to EQ the sound to your tastes. In our room, the 90s bass pressurization was greater than what I experienced through the SVS SB17. The SB17 couldn't match the 90s low bass output at any volume, so while the 90 is a very expensive speaker, it's comforting to know that your money gets you everything that you're going to need in one product. There is absolutely nothing the speaker technically cannot do sonically from 20 to 20 and beyond. Capturing the essence of the 90s sound is next to impossible, and for some of you it may never resonate. Perhaps you see speakers like this as little more than ostentatious examples of the 1%, overpriced and disconnected from today's socioeconomic realities, and you automatically are going to deem them irrelevant. And in those cases, I gotta say, I question your reasons for watching this video. But for those of you who, like me, share a personal connection to the brand or simply just enjoy learning about what is possible, words often fall short in expressing the emotions these speakers and their sound evoke. For me, the BEOLAB 90 is quite possibly the finest loudspeaker I've heard to date, and for one reason or another, it's also one of the few, if not the only speaker that after about a day or so, I stopped obsessing about trying to define or quantify its sound. I just listened to it, and the more I did, the more it faded into the background and became this extension of my day-to-day audio-video experience, and this is the 90's biggest strength, and honestly, it's a gift to me. And let's be real, being an audiophile, even a recovering one, involves a certain level of obsession. And with obsession comes stress. Is this thing good enough? Could I do better, or will I be happier with something else? One thing that Bang & Olufsen excels at is giving you the space to let all of that noise and nonsense just melt away, because even if there is, say, a better DAC or whatever, it doesn't matter with the 90s. Not because you couldn't use it with one of these speakers, you could, but why let something get in the way just to end up as another layer between you and your music when these speakers already give you everything you need built in? So for the past month, my day has started out the same. Taking my phone out of my pocket, queuing up Tidal inside the B&O app, selecting one of a dozen different playlists, usually one inspired by my jazz selections, hitting shuffle whereby my living room, office, and kitchen are just transformed into the recording space. Even 30 feet away and far off axis, the 90s sound is one of absolute accuracy and true to life physical dimension, scale, and weight, even at low volumes. Even in its OMNI sound mode, where every driver under the fabric shell is used to create a more omnidirectional, room-filling sound, the speakers still maintain their knack for nuance and subtlety, trading what other speakers in a similar mode mistake for a party, where the sound has no focus or intent other than to just fill the space with noise. The 90s OMNI mode is more grounded in reality with respect to the placement of instruments and vocalists. So while it does fill the room, there's still this sense of stereo imaging even in its omnidirectional mode. But regardless of the mode, I found myself going on little musical journeys down memory lane, and at some point, I stopped listening for you or, this channel. I was listening for me. It no longer mattered if this note or that note was, quote, correct, or if I had heard this song or that song better through something else. And once I realized I was reconnecting with my love of music and not obsessing over the gear or even this job, I stopped worrying about what the speaker was doing altogether. They made me chuckle, gasp, and even cry on more than one occasion. Now, I'm not suggesting that lesser speakers can't do those things too, but it happened so subtly with the 90s that I was always a little taken aback, admitting to myself, even quietly in my own head, like, son of a bitch, they did it to me again. They got me. Another thing that I noticed was that I stopped focusing on my tried and true test tracks. Instead, I played everything because I never stumbled upon a track or an album that was unlistenable. Even during their initial setup, Christy played Beastie Boys' Sabotage through the 90s at volumes easily cresting 100 decibels in room, and I didn't care. Through 99% of loudspeakers we've ever had in this house, including our Titans, I cannot listen to that song at Christie's preferred volumes. It is too punishing for me. Yet through the 90s, it didn't bother me. Even the piercing quality of Ad Rock's contributing vocals didn't cause pressure to build up around my temples and lead to instant listener fatigue. Yeah, it was loud and in your face, but it was pure, clean, and free of any and all distortion, and as a result, I enjoyed it. But for me, my favorite moments were when I could steal a bit of time for myself, place the 90s in their wide mode, and cue up old favorites like REM's album Around the Sun, Billy Joel's Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, Tonic's Lemon Parade, or Train's self-titled debut. For such large speakers, the 90s always, and I do mean always, melted away into the soundstage, completely unable to be located in three-dimensional space, and in their, call it virtual absence, the performance and that you are there presence of the recorded event, even a studio one, shined through. I mean it. No speaker other than maybe the Klipsch La Scala or Bowers & Wilkins 800 signature that I can recall placed Michael Stipe and Billy Joel right in front of me with such vivid precision that I swear to you, I could get up and walk around them as if they were physically present. And I don't know what that is worth to you or anyone watching this, but the greatest feat any hi-fi or home theater product can achieve is suspending one's belief. Throughout my time with the 90s, this happened more regularly than any other speaker I've heard. On the human connection scale, it joins the Klipsch La Scala for me as one of the only 2 or 3 speakers that have successfully broken through and become something more than just a speaker that's in-house for review. Like the La Scala, I have created memories with the 90s, which isn't something many products do nowadays. And for those of you who dislike it when I wax poetic or I get a little too emotional, because after all, we're talking about a speaker, just know that at this level of excellence, there's nothing really one needs to worry about or be concerned is missing with respect to the 90s sound. While exceedingly neutral and distortion-free, they can sound however you want. They are insanely flexible with respect to placement due to their driver layout, and they have the headroom to overcome acoustic deficiencies like dips in the bass while providing experienced users with the ability to smoothen out peaks thanks to their internal PEQ, which works in conjunction with the auto room correction. And at the tap of your screen inside the app, you can change their dispersion characteristics for a more precise, call it near-field-esque presentation by placing them in their narrow mode. An inadvertent benefit of this mode is an even tighter focus on dialogue or lyrics, which may be a good thing for some content. This newfound focus isn't artificial or machine enhanced. It's all done acoustically while maintaining the speaker's inherent tone and neutrality, which more brands should try and replicate because it sounds more natural and pleasing than the alternative. However, let's just be real, intelligibility isn't something the 90s struggled with either. And in its wide mode, I dare you to watch a movie through these and not come away being impressed. The speaker's dispersion is so great that without any faux surround sound gimmicks, it was possible to hear sounds approach the sides of our sofa and overhead in such an organic fashion that on more than one occasion, I turned to Christy and I said, these would be incredible in a home theater environment. I know I could be happy calling just the pair my home theater, but yeah, I got a little devil in me now that wants to hear them as part of a full Atmos setup, which would require me to also get my hands on the theater soundbar again and use our BEOLAB 8s. With the BEOLAB 90 celebrating its 10th birthday this year, there are a few things that potential customers should be aware of, the most significant being that the 90 is not on B&O's newest platform, Mozart. As a result, it will always rely on ancillary equipment like the core to take better advantage of features like HDMI, wireless connectivity, and newer app functionality. You also do not get physical touch controls for things like volume or presets on them the way that you do with newer B&O products. On a more positive note, though, the 90s have all of the physical connection options needed to work with old and new B&O products, never mind the ability to connect them to more traditional hi-fi and home theater components, such as, say, streamers, DACs, preamps, or surround sound processors. One thing is for sure, though, you will never need an amplifier or a subwoofer with the 90s. And finally, probably the only question y'all care about. Are the BEOLAB 90s, quote, worth it? And we get this question a lot, whether we're talking about something that costs $1,500 or $150,000. And it's a question I often struggle to answer. And honestly, it isn't one I can really answer for anyone because it's truly relative to you, the individual. Are the BEOLAB 90s worth it to me? 100% they are. Can I afford them? No. Does that make them overpriced? No, it just makes them more of a dream than a reality for me. But then again, I grew up with pictures of Lamborghini Countaches on my wall, and I'm no closer to affording one of those either, but I don't begrudge those who can, nor do I think Lamborghini is evil for building cars I continue to long for, but will never own. And while I am sure we can all play the game of assembling a system that will eventually check all of the performance benchmarks set by the 90 and maybe even come up with a virtual setup that costs less, I know that I can quickly assemble a system that costs way more just as easily. But playing these games completely misses the point of the 90s or any Bang & Olufsen product. One of the biggest benefits to a speaker like the 90 is that you don't need to play hi-fi equipment roulette to arrive at what many would deem as perfection. And for me, when I stop and allow myself to picture a reality where I don't have to care or pay attention to the noise of the next DAC, streamer, speaker, whatever, I'll be the first to admit to you that I start to do a little bit of math as I wonder if there is a reality where I could call a speaker as great as the 90 my very own. Because when I think about how much I have personally spent on hi-fi and home theater over my 20-plus year career, I know it's more than what the 90s command. I also know that nothing I've purchased so far has entirely delivered on what I thought I was supposed to get by upgrading to the next best thing in the way the BEOLAB 90 has. It has surpassed my every expectation, and I still feel like I've only just scratched the surface of what it's capable of because, as I said before, I stopped evaluating this speaker long ago and just enjoyed it for what it is and for the beautiful experiences it gave me. Like I said, the 90s art. So that's it. That is now my review of Bang & Olufsen's BEOLAB 90. I can't wait to talk to you about it on Friday's Unplugged, where we're going to find out what Christy thinks of it. But until then, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And while it may be a new year, remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.